the suicide rate is disproportionately higher for those who are incarcerated among the general population.
This is actually the first time we've done a suicide prevention walk inside of a prison in the whole country, believe it or not. Some of you have lost people to suicide, and some of you have even made attempts.
Suicide knows no race, it knows no age, gender, social status. It unites us as people.
Strength. Strength means not giving up.
This one is faith, hope, and survivor. Survivor's for my sister because she tried to kill herself.
I'm wearing a bracelet for my father who died by suicide.
Bracelets are for me.
I'm with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. I'm the only staff here in the state of Oregon, and so it was really a pleasure to work with George to get this going. And this is actually the first time we've done a suicide prevention walk inside of a prison in the whole country, believe it or not. And I know that this is something that for a lot of you is personal, and you have been impacted by suicide. Some of you have lost people to suicide, and some of you have even made attempts. And so I just want to thank you for the courage and the boldness it's taken for each of you to be out here today. Thank you. So here, yeah, thank you. We also have a few more people to thank. Those of us that are volunteering here from the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, I think there's 9 or so of us. Everybody give a wave. Thank you for coming to help. So our mission at the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention is to save lives and bring hope to those affected by suicide. And we do that in every situation possible. And like I said before, this is the first time we've done this inside of a prison. There's no place that we won't go to bring that message of hope, as well as the future that we can save lives. Our bold goal is to reduce suicide 20% by 2025, and we do that through investing in research, by providing education, things like the Talk Saves Lives presentation that we did this morning, as well as for advocacy, which means that we work in governments here in Salem as well as Washington, D.C. to get basically laws changed so that people don't have to die by suicide. So I really want to thank you all again for your participation. We have a really special speaker who's a volunteer here. She has a very personal connection to this cause and to each of you here, so I want to welcome Christy.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Ryan, for the introduction. I just want to say that it is such a privilege to be here today, and I thank you so much for this opportunity. And I also want to appreciate George and others who have made this unprecedented event possible today, because it is very important. It is very important that we talk about suicide, because for far too long, we have kept our stories quiet. We have kept our struggles quiet, and we have stood in the darkness. We know that suicide is one of the top leading causes of death in our society, and we also know that the suicide rate is disproportionately higher for those who are incarcerated among the general population. We also know that suicide is preventable and that help is available. So, okay, let me tell you a little bit about me. I'm a mental health counselor, and so I work with adults and children in our society that are struggling and going through very difficult times in their lives. And it brings a lot of meaning and purpose into my life to be able to help individuals who have experienced some adversities, and bringing awareness to the way in which it has impacted them, their behaviors, their relationships, and to overcome and gain skills so that they can go on to find meaning and purpose in their lives. So my work history started about 16 years ago, and I worked in child welfare, so Child Protective Services, Adult Protective Services, Department of Corrections, welfare, poverty, and I worked a lot with marginalized populations. And what I realized from that is that I have met a lot of really beautiful people that have gone through unimaginable experiences in their lives. So I have this experience and this education that I bring with me, but my journey here started a long time ago. I was forced to learn about suicide at a very young age. I was forced to learn about suicide when my father took his own life while he was incarcerated. It rippled through my life. It shattered my family. And it became my biggest emotional torment to live with. Those raw emotions still surface at times. And sometimes they tidal wave over me, even still today. And for years, it was my deepest, darkest secret. I couldn't talk about it. I wouldn't talk about it. And sometimes I even felt afraid if others would know my story, what they would think of me. I was filled with shame. I was filled with those stereotypes and stigmas that are often out there in our society, that we shouldn't talk about mental health, that we shouldn't talk about suicide. So at times I was filled with anger, feelings of helplessness, hopelessness towards my father and myself. And so it's taken a long journey for me to get here, and in some ways this journey continues, in different ways though. Because as human beings, we can never unexperience what we've experienced in our lives. But we have to find support, be able to work through some of these issues in a way that we can find meaning and purpose in our lives and within our stories. So I have grown from not being able to share my story with anyone at any time to standing here before you all today and talking very openly about this this experience that leaves me so vulnerable. So the impact on me was insurmountable, and my feelings and thoughts about suicide and the causes of suicide have shifted over time. And at times I felt like I was on an emotional roller coaster and I didn't have control of anything in my life. And I had to ride that ride over and over. There was no getting off. And as I grew older, I began to question and wonder about suicide, about my father's loss, about what he may have been experiencing that brought him to such a place of loneliness and isolation and despair and hopelessness. And while many of those answers I'll never directly receive, it did lead me on a path in my professional work, and that is to provide support, education, therapy services, hope to others, and to speak out about suicide. So please, don't stay silent. Mental health symptoms like depression, anxiety, trauma, and suicidal thoughts are not personal weakness. I have never worked with any attempt survivor and had them tell me that they wanted to die. Instead, I hear they're exhausted. They're seeking relief from the suffering, the mental anguish, the sleepless nights, feelings of terror and helplessness, feeling like there's no end to life's struggles. And when we experience these feelings or others, like loneliness and isolation, being a burden to others, feeling helpless in our lives, that's when we need to be strong and speak up. Because it takes courage to speak up. It takes courage to be emotionally vulnerable and let others see you for who you are and what you're experiencing in your life. It takes courage to ask for help. So that takes all a tremendous amount of strength, quite the opposite from weakness. And through our connections, we will find support, understanding, and be able to access services for our mental health. And you'll know that you're not alone. So through my journey, I've learned a lot about myself, and it has brought me to this place in doing the work that I presently do as a therapist, working with individuals one-on-one. And presently, I am working with a little girl who is 10 years old, and I talked with her, and she asked me to share a few things with you today. She's 10 years old, and she lost her father right before Christmas. And her stories had a big overlap. And at first I felt a little bit hesitant of working with her because it was so close to home for me. But what I learned in my work with her is that I could help her find understanding. I could help reshape her experience of what it meant to lose a parent to suicide. And I could provide her safety in expressing her feelings, asking her tough questions, and provide her a space that was filled with light, and letting her know that there's no need to hide, there are no secrets, and that she can bring voice to her experience, and it's really important. So she tells me that eventually she wants to help others, and this is what she says: I want to fight the fight. I want to fight against suicide. And I asked her what she would tell you if she could be here today, and she said, everyone is important and has worth. Don't feel like you're alone, because you're not. Ask for help. Thank you. So at this time, George has asked me to begin our walk, and then I believe he will rein us in at some point for the next steps today. Thank you all.
All right, let's start walking.
I'm walking for a friend of mine named Tony.
I'm wearing my bracelets for Dylan Trump, and passed away on this day 6 years ago, and trying to give Dylan and all the other people a voice that don't have one, so that people know that they can talk to somebody and get support.
My sister Shelley and my cousin Tony. Marcus.
So, my wife's best friend.
I was about 2. I didn't learn about it till I was about 16. My sister told me about it. And 14 years of silence, 14 years of pain that they were, holding back and not telling me about. So it's important to reach out to people and to provide these type of resources to them. That's who I'm walking for, my father and myself, because I struggled with those types of thoughts also after finding out.
I'm walking for Seth Ramsey.
Walking for my grandpa, Gary Maynes.
I'm walking for my friend Beth, and I'm walking for Jesse, who's supporting Andrew Mellon.
All right, guys, thank you for participating in the very first Out of the Darkness Community Walk
inside of a prison in the nation. It's really a great event. There's a lot of people I want to thank. I'd like to thank, first off, Ryan Price and the volunteers from the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. I'd like to thank Mr. Bielenberg for encouraging me and supporting this whole thing. Miss May also for encouragement and support, all her work that she does for the activities. Miss Hendricks that came out earlier today, she's the superintendent and all the upper management that approved this to happen inside of a prison. And finally, all my volunteers that helped make this happen, man. Everybody that set up the tents, everybody that helped pass stuff out. I couldn't have done it without you. We're a team, and all for one, and this is what it's about. So when Ryan Price first came to the office, 6 months ago, he gave me an alarming statistic. 78% of all suicides are by the male gender. And on top of that, we did a little research, Miss Hodgins and I forgot to thank Miss Hodgins. She has a big part in this also, she's not here. But her and I looked online, and so we looked up the statistics for people coming out of prison. And the national average is 8 times less than people coming out of prison.
To the dining room for a visit. Mario Pena to the dining room.
He's going to get to the dining room here soon. So on top of that, the criminal justice system, staff members in DOC included, have a much higher rate of suicide compared to other occupations. So they are as much of the community of prison as we are. So it was great for us to come together and raise money towards the same cause. And so we have the challenge that we've raised money for. I'll be revealing that at the end. I'm going to talk a little bit and then I'll tell you guys who's won, and we'll do the raffle this week. So we've been able to raise quite a bit of money. So I want to talk to you guys about how we don't talk about suicide. It was mentioned earlier a lot, and that's the reason why I kind of want to talk about the boundaries, how suicide has no boundaries, and also tell you a little bit about why I'm passionate about this cause, and on top of that, tell you a little more about how you can help if you weren't at the presentation this morning. So afterwards, we're going to present the check to the AFSP, and we got a big one. We got a big one, too, so it's going to be exciting. And we're going to need pictures. And I want all of you to be in it, too, because we raise money as a community. So we'll take some pictures with the volunteers and Mr. Ryan, and then I would like everybody to be in that picture with the check. So start off, suicide knows no race. It knows no age, gender, social status. It doesn't care if you're incarcerated or if you're a staff member or if you're a citizen of the community. It unites us as people. A lot of us are walking next to people who we see every day. But the only difference of today is that on your wrist, you can notice what connection they have to that cause, the same cause. So what I'm asking you today is to be aware and be open to other people talking about their feelings and their vulnerability. By doing so, we can help prevent suicide. We can help those who are struggling. We can listen to those who have struggled. And we can also honor those that we have lost, which is why I'm here today. So Miss May initially told me about the Out of the Darkness walks in her office, or out in 118 where I spend all my time. And she told me about their walks, and I was like, wow, I want to learn more about that. And Mr. Bielenberg in the back showed me a video, and during that video, I broke down, and I couldn't hold back my tears because it was so powerful to see all of the people. Man, the community walks out there, there are so many people that are affected by the same cause, and it just broke me down. And Miss May asked me, are you worried about getting shipped out or something? What's wrong? And I told her, no, I'm just really passionate about connecting myself to this cause. And when I get out, I want to be a part of it. And Mr. Bielenberg said, well, why wait? Why not do it here? And that's the culmination of today. And that's why this walk has happened today, because of the encouragement of Mr. Billenberg, breaking that barrier of staff and inmate. We're all people. We all have feelings. We all go through our own struggles. We all have lost people. A lot of us, or some of us, to suicide. And I lost my father when I was 2 years old. If you guys weren't at the presentation, I didn't find out it was a suicide until I was about 16 years old. You know, my sister ended up telling me that he died by suicide and not in a car accident. That's 14 years of silence. 14 years of pain and suffering that my mother and my sister had to go through without me even knowing. And it screwed me up as a teenager. I mean, I wasn't thinking right as a teenager in the first place. So, you know, learning that my father died by taking his own life was a big hit for me. And it led me down a dark road. It led me down the road to get this green bracelet to where I thought about suicide myself. But I was able, well, after coming to prison for 7.5 years, you know, I was able to find myself, and I was able to reach out to other people by doing this and talking to other people. And that's what I feel like my purpose is. So I really appreciate you guys all coming today. And I want you to know that you can prevent suicide. And it's about recognizing those warning signs, changes in behavior, changes in the way they talk, and changes in their mood. And just reach out to that person and take action to help them get to help before they take action in taking their own lives. Because that could be your loved one. That could be your friend. It could be a complete stranger. But we could save lives by just lending an ear and knowing where to send them. Right? So I want to thank you guys again. If we can get everybody here a round of applause for showing up and raising all this money. As Mr. Ryan Price said earlier, we've raised money to try to prevent or lower the suicide rates by 20% by 2025. I believe it's called Project 2025. So we're all a part of that, and we're all a part of the Salem Community Walk, which Ms. Sean here is organizing out there. And I plan on going out there and walking and telling this story out there, as long as my PO lets me. So if I could have Miss May present the check. Oh, okay, I'll present the check. So our goal was $3,000, and we raised $3,000 together. So Ryan Price and the AFSP, from everybody here at SCI, thank you very much for being a part of change and being a part of saving people's lives. Thank you. All right, thank you guys again. Very first one in the nation. I'm so excited for you guys and for us, and I'm willing to tell this story to a lot of people, so you're going to be a part of that. Thank you again.
Well, I can
It's
tell
not
you
through
guys
press
that
points.
you are the top fundraising team so far for the Salem.
Yeah, top fundraising team. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you.
You guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, pictures. Okay, that's a good way to end. Thank you to the AFSP. Thank you, Ryan Price. Thank you to all my volunteers, all our volunteers, everybody that participated in the presentation and setting up everything. I mean, this is great. It's the first one inside of a prison, and it's at Santiam Correctional Institution. Thank you.